And you know, people often say to us, "You guys are unrelentingly positive," you know, as if we were these sunshine journalists. And I guess we are. No doubt, we are definitely the praise singers of the Karoo. We are the Imbongis of the Karoo. But to be the praise singer, you also have to know the negative stuff. So we are probably more than most aware of the issues in most of the 101 small towns, railway sidings, villages of the Karoo, because that's our neighbourhood now.
I'm not part of this show, I'm on the sidelines of it, because at every literary festival of any kind in Cradock, everybody always looks forward to the Chris and Julie show. So it's that time of the festival when we have the Chris and Julie show, and it's a very special one, because the third of this particular series of books, Karoo Roads, now trilogy, is newly out. It arrived only a few days ago, and they're here to talk about that. To start with, what I wanted to do is to raise the name of another person who is not here and cannot be here, but who looms very large in the lives of certain people in this room, who looms very large in the lives and the Karoo journey of both Chris and Jules. And who are talking about, and why is
that? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. That would be Michael Antrobus. You know, writers are very seldom lucky enough to have mentors in their field of study. And
Can you raise the mic a little bit?
okay, is that better?
The light came up, yeah. The light came up.
Closer.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
yeah.
We were lucky enough to meet Michael Antrobus when in fact, long before we moved here. Sandra and Michael had a huge effect on us moving here, because once we met them, we thought, what fantastic, kind, generous, lovely, knowledgeable people. We would love to live among such people. So when we moved here, Michael sort of quietly took us under his wing and started teaching us about the Karoo, and we badly needed it, because at that stage we were still calling Angora goats sheep. And, in fact, there's a little in-joke you might find when you read the book, when a chapter about Angora goats, and the blurb is, please don't call them sheep. But he told us about everything, from below the ground up, the geology, the soil, the palatable plants, the grasses, the vexatious issues that face farmers, the irrigation and how that happened in this area. But he never really mentioned his true claim to fame, which is that he started the whole pecan nut industry, really. He was a pioneer in this area. And as he often says, thank goodness the pecan nuts couldn't read, because the reports that were sent to him saying they'll never happen here, you shouldn't grow pecan nuts here, would have dismayed them. So, you know, it was just a fantastic experience to have somebody show us the Karoo and travel with us and explain what we were seeing.
And the third book is about renewal and second chances, and of course we've been through that drought, and how many years, and how have things changed, and how did you find that in the stories that you read?
That's a good one. The first book, Karoo Roads, was written in the middle of a killer drought that this region has undergone. The stories of sadness and desperation were all around, from here right across to Calphidia, into the Roffelveld, up to the Kalahari. And the lead story, one of the elements that we always look for is the big heart story. And the lead story in that book was about the gift of the givers working in the Karoo. They have a very strong team, and they did a lot of work. I think we went on about 5 little missions with them, and we're very lucky to have a full interview with Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman. And yesterday someone said, well, he should definitely be up for president, and well, I would support that. Fabulous fellow. And that was a relief story. By the time the third book rolled along this year, the drought, I don't want to say the drought is over, let's just say it's being relieved. And the palpable feeling in the Karoo, it's like the whole place is dancing. Farmers are dancing in the veld. The livestock is coming back again, plans are being made, bank managers are being held at bay, and the towns are starting to, I guess because of COVID, and the effects of COVID, you've heard about the wave of in-migration, of people moving down to the Western Cape from Gauteng. Well, a lot of young people in particular have moved to the Karoo because they've discovered the joys of distance work. They can work online, they can be out of the office, they can move into a small Karoo town, buy a property for a very affordable price, and which the Western Cape is starting to become a little bit overpriced. And they can basically set up a life for themselves and their children in the small towns of the Karoo. So we start tracking those stories. The books have developed a life of their own. They've got about 17 different working parts. We try very carefully to include all of them. For instance, the big heart story of this particular book is the most incredible school I've ever seen in my life. And Jules will tell you more.
It's a school just south of Colesberg. It's a farm school. And it was founded by 3 farmers' wives. And it didn't start off being a magnificent thing. It started off being a play school. And it grew and grew because the parents wanted something more. And these 3 women, Leslie, I have to ask you to stand up. Sorry. Leslie is one of the founders. Absolutely one of our heroes. And through the school, the lives of thousands of children have been transformed. In fact, that whole area has been transformed. In part because these women have given, and they've attracted a team around them that have given everything to these children. And they take care of them from birth, from before birth. They take care of the mothers. They take care of the toddlers. Once they get to school, every emphasis is made on early childhood development and foundation learning. And as a result, and then after school, it goes up to grade 9. Yeah. They then give them bursaries. They look after them. They have got other opportunities for them. They've got the Huntham Hospitality School. They've got the Huntham Handyman School. And as a result of this, more than 90% of the learners from this school are employed. Which, in a world now where 64% of the youth are unemployed in this country, it is a remarkable, remarkable thing. And the sign over the top of the entrance to their admin building simply says, never, never, never give up. And that's what they've done.
I and both of you, we all come from a newspaper background. We have this in common. We're close friends. We live with each other in Craddock. And why I raise newspapers is because in your now many travels throughout the Karoo, you here and there find small town newspapers. Could you tell us about a couple of those?
Well, the one we write about in this book, the source for that was a trip to Victoria West, where somebody said to us, the Victoria West Messenger used to be published out of Victoria West, and the old print shop is still there. It's closed, but you can go and ask at the legal offices next door. So we talked off to the legal offices, a very kind fellow called Kershaw, took us through, unlocked the place, and there was this wonderful print shop that had been printing this newspaper, this country newspaper, for over a century. The old Heidelbergs were there. It was almost as if they had the printers had just walked out, except for the dust. And everything was just left, the printer's trays were there, the lead was there, all the stuff. And Jules and I, yes, we're from newspapers, but I mean, it's like most people think water just comes from a tap. You know, we didn't know much about the print shop. We didn't know how, we'd see the printers once a year at the Christmas party, basically, and now and again we go and look at the whetstone, but they chased the reporters out because we were in their way. Maybe we would identify that whole dynamic. And so we asked about this, and they said, no, the paper is moved to California. So off we go. We pinned the story for 5 years. 5 years later, we're in California, and there's this little building called Die Noordwester in the main street. And we go and inquire, and it turns out that Frans Hugo is the owner. He's 89 years old, and Frans Hugo, every Thursday morning at 2 a.m., he loads his old, I think it's a Datsun bucky, one of those plumbers type buckies, 1200, and heads off on Route 63. He's first with 1,200 copies. Just remember the 1,200 constantly. 1,200 copies of this newspaper, and then his first stop is Williston, where he sees the petrol attendant, gives him a few copies to drop off at the co-op when that opens, and then he's off to Logston, Carnarvon, the whole thing. In fact, this fellow in one day covers 1,200 kilometers. And he does this ambit, and he does it every Thursday, and he's still doing it. And he told us amazing stories about because he was a classic newspaper man who grew up in the print shop as an apprentice, became a reporter later. In the old days when the trains were running through the Karoo, he used to take his bicycle, climb on a train, and ride the train to the next stop, climb off there, and then he would cycle around, pick up a story or two, he would sell an ad or two, and then he would catch the train and go off to the next place, the following train that stayed a night maybe. And so, to us, he was an absolute, the last newspaper cowboy in South Africa, because you don't get the old school like that anymore. So that's Frans Hugo. Yeah. And that's one of the characters. In terms of the working parts of these books, we like to do the serious stuff, but we also like to include the human interest stuff. We love the road trip writing, because that just takes in a lot of elements as well. And then in particular, when we look at a town, when we do a town focus, everything comes into play. You look for your eccentric, you look for your history, you look for your current situation, you go into all the communities and you find the people of interest there. Obviously, we choose as a completely subjective thing, but we rely on our experience as newspaper people, as magazine people, to know what's a good story. And you know, people often say to us, you guys are unrelentingly positive. You know, as if we were these sunshine journalists. And I guess we are. No doubt. We are definitely the praise singers of the Karoo. We are the Imbongis of the Karoo. But to be the praise singer, you also have to know the negative stuff. So we are probably more than most aware of the issues in most of the 101 small towns, railway sidings, villages of the Karoo, because that's our neighborhood now. And to get to the positive story, the little diamond, the person who makes the difference, civil society is starting to rise in this country, and in particular in the Karoo. The one thing we were part of was the entire anti-fracking movement. That was the one cause we got serious about. But for the rest, it's entertainment, it's information, and these small towns, yeah, you bring them to life. And one of the pleasures of doing this book collection has been bringing dead people to life. You know, people that we interviewed, like in the Rupterstad, in Lekkersen, Kubus, and Externfontein, little villages, deep in the Rupterstad mountains, where the Tannies still wear the kappies, and the Wormies, they call them Grootmense, they sit on their stoops, and they don't play with their phones or anything, they talk to each other, and it's this light banter in the richest, most textured Afrikaans. You don't speak English up in the Rupterstad at all. You are just not going to get anywhere with English. But and these guys, we interviewed them in 2007, right? And they passed. But but we've brought them back to life in this book, in a chapter. So yeah, it's been a great journey for us.
And Jules, can you perhaps tell us more about can you hear me? Can you tell us more about the succulent Karoo that you discovered on that journey, and what is the succulent Karoo like? What is it really, and is it different from what we've always imagined the Karoo to be?
Yes, it's very different.
I happen to know something about it.
Yes, I know it's very close to your heart. Broadly speaking, the Karoo is divided into the Great Karoo. We're in the Great Karoo now. If you want to get technical, it's the grassy Karoo part of the Great Karoo. Then you also get the Klein Karoo, which is underneath the Swartberg Mountains. And then the other great vegetation area of the Karoo is called the succulent Karoo, which many of us also call Namaqualand. And that is the area of profound beauty in spring, where, the sweets and sweets of flowers. And this is an area that sort of starts north of Wonderklip, includes Springbok, and strangely enough, and people don't really realize this, reaches at least a third into Namibia. So that is the succulent Karoo is part of Namibia as well. And this has got probably the richest botanical biodiversity of the Karoo. It also happens to be Tony's birthday, so included, which is around your month. And it also happens to include a lot of diamonds. And of course, where there are diamonds, there are good stories. We're not interested in diamonds ourselves, we don't own any, but diamond stories are the best possible things.
I thought you were about to read a diamond story.
No, this is on request from Daryl David. One of the towns that we cover in this book is Richmond. That is really one of our favourite towns because of the wealth of people there. And there's the Book Bedorned Festival, which Daryl was very instrumental in starting. And they, I don't know how they carry on year after year. There are threats and challenges, but they manage it. They manage it by hook or by crook. And I'm very pleased. I nearly ditched this chapter when I discovered you guys weren't going to have and then the good news came through. So it was great. So anyway, we've often been there, and his partner in crime is a Canadian fellow called Peter Baker, also the founder. And this is just a little excerpt. One summer, we were drinking sundowners on the strip of Peter Baker's Richmond home up near a hill called Veghel. With us was the star of that book bedorned weekend, Patrick Maynard, a superb fellow. Patrick was about to perform a marathon 4-hour show, combining The Boy from Bethune with parts of his Herman Charles Bosman gig. The aged trooper should have been napping in preparation. Instead, he entertained us with tales from his long acting career, like the time he was declared an Ereburger, honorary citizen of his hometown, Bethune. I had to perform in honor of myself, he said, and it was me who arranged the seats, opened the windows, wound back the curtains, and swept the stage. As usual, the audience reacted with enthusiastic applause and laughter, except, that is, for one old local who had known him as a young boy. Every 10 minutes he would interject, No, Patty, it never happened like that. Someone understood, asked the 75-year-old man how he could still muster his incredible energy for a simple small-town show when he was just about to go on stage in London's West End. He replied, I just want to die in the spotlight with my acting boots on. It doesn't matter where. Patrick Maynard died in London a few weeks later.
All right, so it's very clear that both Chris and Julie, because they tend to travel together quite often, have seen surely more Karoo towns than anybody else, I imagine. So what's coming. In the light of that, this is a two-part question. In the light of that, can you name 5 Karoo dorps that you haven't been to? It's a two-part question. And why not?
You answered that.
Okay, 3, maybe 3.
Okay, 3, yeah. We haven't been to Stratenburg, and I cannot quite explain why. Why is that? I think somebody told us it was a bit of a challenged town, but we do intend going there soon because there's a woman who rehabilitates raptors, Ronelle Fasati, so we are going to go up there one of these days.
Another town, Oranje. We are going to Oranje.
Yeah.
The other town.
Would you go? Are you interested in going?
I'm put it this way. I'm tempted.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm tempted.
Yeah.
I'm not interested. I'm tempted.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's an
Yeah.
ambiguous answer, but
Sure.
I'm tempted. Yeah.
Some we've only sort of, I wouldn't say circled the church, but we haven't really sort of we've just been in and maybe done one full story, but need to go back, I don't know, like Pietersville. And then there's a few other little towns like the really tiny railway sidings like Miller, Fuller, no, what's it? God, I don't know. I struggle to find it.
But there's no doubt that at some point you're going to get to these places.
Oh yes, for sure.
Remote as they are, if they're there, they're going to be found in one of your trips.
For sure.
Okay. Now be careful how you answer this one. Do you have a favourite Karoo town other than Craddock?
Okay.
I'm making it easy. And why?
Okay, we love Uniondale for the mountains, and the community is nice.
Obviously Richmond.
Richmond, yeah, Richmond is great. Occasionally fond of Prince Albert. Not crazy about Prince Albert. Berrydale's interesting, stuff happening in Berrydale. Where do you live? If they kick us out. Oh, Calvinia. Calvinia is another town. And Williston. Maritzburg. You know, I'm still telling you about Maritzburg very quickly. I don't know if I was in Europe right now, I would, with the winter that's coming in a few weeks' time and the current tensions, I would lock my house wherever I am in Europe, Germany, Italy, France, etc. And I would come down and buy a bungalow or a house out of Beerslacey in Maritzburg and just spend the summer here, you know, to get away from what's going on up north. In fact, I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of tourism from Europe this season.
Now, the layout of this book is excellent. It really is top rate. I'm not suggesting in any way that the previous two books weren't great and well laid out, and they were. But I know you've given special attention to this book, and it certainly is visible, even as you first flipped through it. And you mentioned that you think this is your best book. Why is that?
Well, first, just let me tell you, Chris can answer that one. I just want to say that all our books, all these, the Karoo Road series and Moving to the Platteland, we tried something new and we love it. We write, and there's a picture or series of pictures on the right-hand side, and more recently, double-page spreads. Very narrative photography. So you read about somebody and then you see them. So, you know, there's Leslie Osler, you chat about Leslie Osler, and voila, there's a picture of her and the two other founders. So it's I don't know, it's just we've never seen any other book like it.
And what also makes it very special was the cover. We saw the cover last year briefly on social media. It was taken by a guy in New Bethesda with a drum, and we bought the rights, the printing rights immediately. So that has been also very special to us. New Bethesda in the snow, taken from the air with the Sneeuwberg Mountains in the background of film.